People have read it. What's your crazy army story? Not an army story. A story that happened because I went to the army. When I was 21 years old, I got the call I had been expecting and dreading for weeks. I was being deployed to Afghanistan. My heart sank when I got the news, not because I was afraid to go, but because I had just asked the love of my life, Emily, to marry me. I still remember the way her eyes sparkled when she said yes. It felt like everything in my life was finally falling into place. We celebrated that night, talking about our future, planning a wedding, imagining a life filled with happiness, kids, and all the things we dreamed about. The day I left, she stood on the tarmac, waving goodbye with tears streaming down her face. I promised her I'd come back and we'd have the life we always talked about. That promise kept me going through some of the hardest days of my life. Afghanistan wasn't easy. War never is. We were stationed in a remote outpost, surrounded by mountains, and every day was a battle to stay alive. I saw things I can't unsee. Friends I trained with didn't make it home. There were nights when the sounds of gunfire and explosions echoed in my head long after they stopped. But through it all, I kept thinking of Emily. Her letters were my lifeline. Every word she wrote reminded me that there was something beautiful waiting for me back home. After what felt like an eternity, my deployment ended, and I was finally going home. I couldn't contain my excitement. All I could think about was holding Emily again, feeling her in my arms, and starting our life together. The plane touched down, and as I walked through the crowd of families waiting for their loved ones, I spotted her. She ran to me, and for a moment, everything was perfect. She kissed me like she never wanted to let go, and I thought, this is it. This is what I fought for. She drove us back to our apartment, and we talked and laughed the whole way. It was like no time had passed. She told me how proud she was, how much she missed me, and how she couldn't wait to finally get married. But when we got home, something felt off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. The place looked the same, but there was this strange tension in the air, something unspoken, lurking beneath the surface. Later that night, I went to the spare bathroom. I was just looking for some aspirin when I saw a pregnancy test sitting on the counter. At first, I thought maybe Emily was surprising me with good news. My heart started racing, and I grabbed the test, thinking that after everything we'd been through, this was the start of something even more incredible. But when I walked out holding it, her face went pale. "What's this?" I asked, my voice trembling. She didn't answer right away. She just stared at me, as if trying to figure out what to say. Finally, she spoke. "We need to talk." I felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling. "Just tell me what's going on, Emily." She took a deep breath, but it didn't calm her. If anything, she looked more nervous. "I'm pregnant," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. For a moment, I felt relief. "Okay," I said, trying to process it. "That's great. I mean, it's sooner than we planned, but it's not yours," she interrupted, cutting me off mid-sentence. Those 3 words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "What?" I managed to say, even though my voice cracked. "I'm sorry," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "While you were gone, I met someone. It wasn't supposed to be serious, but it happened. I didn't think you'd come back. I didn't know how to handle it." I stared at her, trying to make sense of the words coming out of her mouth. "You didn't think I'd come back? You didn't think I'd survive?" "I don't know," she said, her voice breaking. "It was hard, okay? I was lonely. And now I'm pregnant, and I'm keeping the baby." I felt a mixture of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. All those nights I spent thinking about her, dreaming of coming home, keeping myself alive for her. This was what I came back to. "So, that's it?" I asked, my voice rising. "You made a mistake, and now I'm just supposed to accept it. You said yes when I asked you to marry me. You promised me we'd be together, and now you're telling me you're having another man's child. I didn't plan for this to happen, she said, her tone defensive now. But it did, and I'm keeping the baby. You can either accept it or we're done. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman I had fought for, the woman I had dreamed of marrying, was standing in front of me, telling me she was carrying another man's child and giving me an ultimatum. You're not listening, she snapped. We're still getting married. You owe me that much. You've been gone, and I've been struggling to get by. I need stability for me, for the baby. I stared at her, disbelief turning into rage. You want me to marry you and raise another man's child? You expect me to just forget everything and pretend this is normal? She said, her eyes narrowing. You love me, don't you? This is what love means, standing by me when things get hard. And besides, who else is going to take care of us? You have a responsibility now. You came back and you're here, so step up. I felt like I was in some kind of twisted nightmare. A responsibility. That's not my child, Emily. I didn't sign up to play dad to someone else's kid while you use me to clean up your mess. Her expression hardened. If you don't do this, you'll regret it. You'll never find anyone who loves you like I do. That was when she crossed a line I hadn't expected. The next morning, Emily started telling friends and family that I was the father of her child. I started getting calls and messages congratulating me on becoming a dad. My own mother called, confused but excited, wanting to know why I hadn't told her the good news myself. I confronted Emily again, furious. Why are you telling everyone this is my child? You know damn well it's not. Because it is yours, she said with a twisted kind of confidence. You're the one I want to be with. You're the one who came back. No one needs to know about the other guy. Just marry me, and we'll raise this baby together like we planned. You're delusional, I said, my voice filled with disbelief. You think lying to everyone is going to fix this? I'm not lying, she said stubbornly. You're the one who's supposed to be here. You're the one who's supposed to love me. This baby is ours, no yours, mine. That's what everyone will believe. When I pressed her further, things took an even darker turn. I don't even know who the father is, she admitted with a shrug. It could be one of 6 guys, but none of them matter. You're the one I love, and you're the one who's supposed to take care of us. I couldn't take it anymore. I packed a bag and left, cutting off contact with her. I wasn't going to be dragged into her fantasy, into her lies. I knew it would hurt, but staying would have destroyed me. The next few weeks were a blur. I stayed with a buddy from my unit, trying to figure out what to do next. Slowly, I started to rebuild my life. I focused on myself, on healing. It wasn't easy, but I knew one thing: I had survived war, and I would survive this too. Looking back now, I realize that sometimes the battles you fight after coming home are just as hard as the ones you fight overseas. But you keep going, because that's what survivors do. And that's what I am, a survivor.